So welcome everybody, my name is Paul Smyres, and I hope you've explored some of my other videos on this site. I have a new place here I'm going to start recording from, and I'm going to talk a lot more about books and so on, because I don't want people just to listen to me. I want people to go out and explore some of these fantastic authors and explorers and people from all ages from the past have written about our past history, and there's so much to explore, and that's why I want to just direct people in certain ways to certain books and authors and explorers, and then you can explore on your own. So today I'm going to go into a little bit about some books referencing kind of a development of our history, because history, as they say, if you don't study history, it just gets repeated. Now, speaking of repeating history, the ancient people had all different kinds of concepts about it as well, and they tracked the stars, and there was a lot of astronomical events that happened, and they marked the calendars by certain astronomical events because they're very predictable. You see, you could make a very good prophecy if you knew that in 12 years Jupiter is going to come around to the same position or something like that. So there's a lot in it, and I'm going to go through these books really quickly here, but I encourage people to go and follow some of these other avenues, and we call rabbit holes or whatever, and check it out and see what you find. And why is it important? It's so important because our history matters. You know, the way religions fight, and there's wars, and it's not just a few thousand years here. It goes back a long, long time. There's some very, very strange things that happened in the history of this planet, okay? It's just, things that we can't even conceive of. I mean, most of us, we study, we go to college or whatever, and we learn some history, American history, so-called ancient history, goes back to the Greeks or Romans or whatever you call that ancient, but real ancient history goes back tens of thousands of years, and 20 or 30 or 100,000 years or 500,000 years, you see? A lot has happened on this planet. Now, speaking of timeline, okay, I suggest people get some kind of book like this one. This is an older one, Time Scale, and what it does is it puts into, like, I read this book years ago, my God, I even highlighted it, it's just like, if you look at the coincidences, after a while you realize, holy crap, at such and such a time in history, there was also this astronomical event, or this big earthquake over here, or something like that. You start to get coincidences like, wait a minute here. That's when it gets into cycles, and that's the ancient people taught us. That's why they watched the stars for a long time. And time is marked in the astronomy. And it's going to be very fascinating for people to find out. Like, for example, around 70,000 years ago, there was something like a massive explosion on the Earth. I read that it was like maybe there might be 3,000 mating pairs on there of humans left on the Earth at that time. Mount Toba, it was in Indonesia. It produced some kind of a fantastic global explosion of incredible, we can't even comprehend. And it blackened the sky for years and years, and a lot of wild people died, and wildlife died and everything, and you think, holy crap, I didn't know about that. You see, so then you go back a little further, you'll come a little forward here, and you get around 12 or 13,000 years ago, and all of a sudden, like, there's miles of ice on the Canadian shelf, and all around Ohio, and New York State, and Vermont, and around up in Europe, Northern Europe, like, all of a sudden they started, like, the sea started rising. They kept rising for hundreds of years. There were some massive catastrophes around the world, you see. You get a book like this, you start cross-referencing timelines and events in human history and astronomical events. Like, wow. Okay, get a book like this, more modern one. This is like at least 30 years old. Okay, speaking real quickly here, Galactic alignments. Look up this author here. John Major Jenkins. You see, if a major catastrophe happens on the planet, which it did, and not just one, then it psychologically impacts everybody on Earth, and they get their ass, they're going to tell stories about it, they're going to carve it in stone. And that's what they told us. Stuff happens. And apparently the planet shifted and everything, and there's a galactic situation going on. The sun's going around the center of the galaxy, and then there's There's places out in space from which these massive meteor showers come, and every once in a while one of them hits the Earth, and I mean, blow your mind. Magnetic reversals, okay? The Earth's magnetic field is shifting as we speak. And we're all based on electricity and magnetism. I mean, the birds navigate, and everybody navigates by magnetic poles. And if the magnetic poles of the Earth shift, it's going to cause some problems. And it is shifting. That's the thing. You got to get into this. Check out this guy, Robert W. Felix. Now, this guy believes that we're actually going to go into an ice age. You see, because that's a whole other story. But you got to check this guy out. Ice ages are not that far away, actually, and actually, if you look up the history of geology and so on, you find out that Earth has been in ice ages for hundreds of thousands of years sometimes. It's pretty incredible. So, check out this guy. Okay, now we get into maps, okay? The maps of the ancient sea kings. Okay, this guy, Charles Hapgood. You gotta look this guy up. Author Charles Hapgood. If you had a map back a long time ago, if you had any kind of map, I mean, and you found gold or copper or tin or anything, lumber, timber, I mean, you're wealthy beyond, don't have to tell people where you got it. You just say, okay, you got this copper here, we get it for free, we just mine it, but we're charging you a fortune for it, and that's maps, okay? And people don't think sometimes that people navigated the world before, a long time ago. But the seas were lower, like I said, for a long time. And there were people who had maps, and they were secret because they say, okay, we're not telling anybody where you got that old copper and gold. We just, like, between us, we can tell them the Earth is flat, but, we know where the gold is, you see. So maps became incredibly important. And again, secret technology in a way. If you have maps, I mean, you're on top of everything. So now we get into a little more of the historical record, okay? Secret history of the world. Again, a lot of the history that we have got taught, it's just so, you got a course that you got to take in college or high school, you get this course on history, whatever, and you hope you get a good grade on it, and you talk about the Romans and the Greeks, whatever, but there's a lot more to the history that even there's thousands and thousands of clay tablets from the Sumerians that haven't even been translated yet. And there's ancient Hindu scriptures that go back thousands and thousands of years, and very, very few people even know how to translate them anymore. So there's a whole incredible story that's happened on this planet regarding the various cultures around the world, the various religions and the revelations and the so-called great teachers of the world. And it's just fascinating. So look up this author here. Getting a little more recent, The Secret Destiny. Now, the people who founded this country, there were in the mix of those people, there were like some people who were really into the stars and all the whole esoteric thing. I mean, these people they were Christian, but they were in a very different way Christian than what we have now. I mean, they believed in the esoteric symbolism of Christianity and all the, God is going to bring a new land for them, and they were the founders of this country, but it wasn't, the Christianity that we know today. It was more of a mystical type of Christianity, okay? And in a very different way than we have practiced now. And right along those lines, the secret destiny of the USA. There are people who knew, George Washington and some of these people, this guy, Manny P Hall. Okay, he's famous. You got to look him up. And again, the people who found this country, first of all, there were secret maps. That's how they got here, okay? And not only when they got here, some of them made immediately friends with the natives because they had a common esoteric symbolic language. So it wasn't like, the Westerners came here and started killing off the natives, because there were certain aspects of the native culture that resonated with the mystical aspect of the European culture, because not all Europe was Roman Catholic, you see. And so that's how, you got to read a little more into the history by finding out some of these great authors like Manny P Hall. Again, our country was founded in a very mystical mentality. Now, going back in the Middle Ages, the Grail Kings, okay? Now, the great teachings are esoteric teachings. They're what Jesus and all these great teachers, Zoroaster and Zarathustra and all, they taught the great mystical symbology, the symbolism that had to do with the interlocking with the cosmos and the timing and where different kinds of energies come into the solar system and so on. And basically the whole idea was eventually to have heaven on earth, okay? Well, as above, so below, that the various kinds of energies and radiances that come out of the cosmos, they get supposedly in an ideal scenario, they all get integrated very nicely with human beings. It's our time to flower now, so we're going to transform. But unfortunately, what happens in history is that the new energy comes in, and there's a lot of the old fighting and battles that go on, and a lot of the kings. Some of the kings became very, very corrupt, and we know a lot more about that from other history that we learn in school. So, again, a little quickly here, there were people who kept records. One of them was the Freemasons, and they're the Westerners, but there's all around the world there were different secret cultures that kept the records. And basically what they're trying to say is, look, we got to preserve this esoteric knowledge because it matters. Because for one thing, every so often, the Earth has a big earthquake and it gets upset or something, and the sun has a solar burst, and that's one problem, okay? You got to keep a record, say, tell people, okay, be ready, because the next time this happens, like Noah, build a boat or something. But nowadays it's not like build a boat, it's kind of like, just get some solar power or something, or get something besides, get off the grid, because, if we lose electricity, for example, in this day and age, we got a lot of problems. But the main thing was they kept cycles. There was historical teachings that were based on cycles, and a lot of them were based on astronomy and astronomical events, and that's one reason that astrology became so important. So, again, really quickly here, a couple more books. This one about Atlantis. There have been other cultures and things going on this earth. We know damn well that there's other civilizations that happened. A lot of people who watch this channel, and they know we're not being told most of what's really important about our ancient history. Because if you want to explore, follow me on this site here. I have lots of other books I recommend and some of my own commentary. Over the years, I've answered a lot of my own questions, because between the books and learning and meditation, I go, okay, I think I have a pretty good bearing on it, but there's so much, I have a lot of other questions too. But I have a feeling, I kind of have a rough idea what happened, at least in historical times, the last 20, 30,000 years. Earth has gone through so many catastrophes, and because they carved them in stone, it was very important to them. They aligned buildings a certain way, and they carved in stone to try to tell us, look, this is really, really, really important, okay? We're going to make it so basic. We're going to make it in geometry. We're going to make it in math. We're going to use symbolism and it's very, very important. And that's one reason I make these videos, because there's information that we can get from our past to understand what's going on in our present time, and some of the conflicts, because it's so-called good and so-called evil, and the various kinds of consciousness that have been active on this planet and so on. There's a lot we can gain from our ancient history and the mythology that was basically a symbolic way of telling a story about some actual events, because they didn't watch the stars accurately for thousands of years for no reason. There was an actual purpose in it, a very distinct purpose regarding that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll share a lot more other books with you. And please like and share. I am trying to get some interesting information out there, and share it. And I know I don't have a huge audience, but I just point you in different directions. Go down that rabbit hole. It'll blow your mind. And I'll tell you what, reality is much better than fiction. The fiction is only like a filtered down, like, we got a rough idea of it, but, the reality of our existence and your life here on this planet here is so fantastic that if you explore some of these books and channels and directions that I recommend, I think you are going to find it very inspiring. So thanks again for listening.